Yo, welcome back. You are listening to the Money Matters podcast. I am your host, Jack. You are not joined by my father, Bill. He is sick. He's under the weather. So he will be missing this one. This is a get well, Bill. But you are joined by my best friend, my chief of staff, Dylan, who is also feeling a little under the weather, but he's powering through it. And he's also birthday boy, the big 3-0. Happy birthday. Not literally today, not going to dox him that hard, but we're within the realms of his birthday enough to wish him a happy birthday. How you doing, Dill?
I'm good. And I can hear the speculators chirping right now. It's a birthday weekend. He's under the weather on Sunday, a very likely story. I have not had a sip of alcohol in 21 days, holding out strong until my actual birthday. But not feeling the best, but happy to be here and ready to rip.
That's true. That's true. I didn't mean to do that. Dylan hasn't had alcohol. What'd you say? 21 days? The lucky
Yes.
21? Yes. I haven't had booze or caffeine since Valentine's Day. I think we're both inspired by JD, Mr. Dorsey. Shout out to Jack. I've been loving it. You've been enjoying it? I think you have.
Yeah. It's been the best. I would say that the main takeaway for me is that the current state with which I was drinking before, I will likely never return back to. Just incredible mental clarity. The weekends are a lot longer. It's better. Alcohol is poison. Through and through.
Alcohol's shitcoin. There's no doubt about that. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to go down an alcohol rabbit hole. Alcohol's shitcoin. My take on that is, if everyone on average is going to live to be 75 or whatever the average age is, you could do anything for 2 weeks. You really can. So I would just commit and give it a try and see how you feel. Not that you need to never have it again, but I recommend experimenting this type of shit. Caffeine too. The no caffeine, I sleep like a champ. I mean, everything about my life has been generally better. So give it a try. Anyway, all right. We're down, Dad, but we've got, and I know you're sick, so we won't make this might be a shorter episode. But I found a few tweets. Well, that's not true. Brooke found a few tweets with my stepmom and texted them to me and was like, I'd love if you guys covered this on the podcast. So shout out to Brooke that I think we should cover. What do you think, Dylan? I texted them to you.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. And I think we should start with this MacroScope tweet. It's been a relatively, dull week, in my opinion, in terms of Bitcoin, but it seems like one person has their eye on gold. And Brooke sent this to us, and I'd love for you to explain it a little bit better, because at initial glance, I didn't understand the full scope of what was discussed in this tweet. But reading it out loud, what to watch going forward? See if gold can trade to new highs in the $2,300 plus area. If it does and it's sustained, this would have profoundly bullish long-term implications for BTC. It will be interesting to see how gold futures positioning develops from here, and I'll post anything notable. What exactly does that mean? Why would gold reaching a new high in the $2,300 plus area be extremely long-term bullish for Bitcoin?
Because gold is thought of as the world's anti-dollar trade. I mean, well, it's a relatively fixed asset. Before Bitcoin, it was thought of to be like the fixed hard money trade, hard money asset, hard money standard to use. But first of all, shout out MacroScope. He's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. Everyone should check him out. I've been following him for years. He's awesome. And I think his point is gold has kind of led Bitcoin directionally over the last few years, I would say, definitely, maybe even spanning back to right before COVID. And the idea is that it's some form of proxy as to confidence in the dollar. and he talks a lot about the similarities of the 70s. So the 70s were highly inflationary, and he talks about mapping the 70s over the current environment we're in today and how gold traded, and having some then insight and forward direction as to how Bitcoin will trade. And Bitcoin is a lot harder, a lot scarcer. It's literally fixed in supply. So it's always a faster horse if you can stomach the risk. I think, legacy traders have been slower to been able to price the risk of Bitcoin, and understand the technology, understand the counterparty risks, understand the technological risks. But gold is far less superior of a trade. It doesn't perform nearly as well, but it is still a general proxy because it's a big enough asset class to stomach liquidity too. So if gold is, the point he's making is if the Federal Reserve is hawkish, is bearish, is in your face with interest rates, and why would you ever want to own gold unless you're terrified of the performance of the dollar? So I don't know if that makes sense. It's a pretty straightforward tweet, but he's been right. Gold made new highs at, I think it was, what was it, 1,300? It made new highs. Bitcoin was at 3,000, and gold has now rallied. Gold has like doubled. Bitcoin has like 20x'd. But I think it's looking out for a similar pattern, as if the world is going to roll out of dollar denominated based instruments and into gold, Bitcoin's posed for a really big rally. I don't know.
So gold hit an all-time high and Bitcoin was trading at 3,400. So does that suggest that it's like a leading indicator? Is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah, I just wouldn't get too caught up in, that's what he's claiming, but I wouldn't get too caught up in that. It's just an indicator of everyone's confidence in the dollar and the Fed and their management. If the Federal Reserve is hiking interest rates and they're claiming it's because the economy is growing, so they're saying you can lend us dollars, we will pay you no risk returns on that because we're doing so well. Why would you own gold? Right? If you had something that was growing so much that you could put money into it and get 5.5% back risk free, why would I own a piece of metal that returns me nothing? It's because those dollars that you're getting paid in return are being devalued more than they're returning. So it's the world's way of saying, I don't buy your bullshit. And so gold has always kind of been a proxy for, because if the Fed is saying, we're raising rates so much, you should give us all of your money, we're doing so well, and the smartest people in the world, the free market, is saying, I'm not buying it, you're full of shit, that goes to show the consensus of the market. They're like, I'm not believing the Fed. I think they're stuck in a rock and a hard place. I think they're fucked. And I'd rather own a relatively fixed asset than buy into this bullshit. I think I'm getting scammed. And so if the market is a believer in that, and they think that there's going to be a lot of liquidity that has to be injected in the system, the dollar's going to get crushed, then he's saying that means good things for Bitcoin, which historically has been true, right? Whenever the dollar is strong, it means bad things for Bitcoin. Whenever the dollar is weak, it means good things for Bitcoin. If you look at a Bitcoin chart, it tells the story of the dollar gets weaker over time. But, it goes in these waves. Things are cyclical. But what he's saying is gold's always been, now for many generations, a proxy. Ever since he left the gold standard, has been a proxy for temperature of the Fed and monetary policy and central bank management. And so he's like, if gold makes new highs and rips up, because the Fed's been talking recently and saying, we're not so sure inflation isn't at 2%. We may raise our target, but we're going to be soft on the trigger to bring it down. And he's saying, okay. And if gold starts to rip higher, I'd expect Bitcoin to blast through 100K. He didn't say that literally, but that's my interpretation. I think he's right.
And in this situation, like who are the buyers of gold in this situation? In general, retail, my friends, everyday life, I don't know anyone that owns gold or like owns gold ETFs. Is this institutional money piling in?
Yeah, I mean, central banks themselves own,
Mm.
I think, the most gold in the world. Yeah, sovereigns. I've always said gold has the market cap and existing distribution to be able to accept entrance of significant size. Like I said, you know, if Saudi oil money wanted to get into Bitcoin in the first Bitcoin block, they couldn't because there was only 50 Bitcoins. And so if they put $10 trillion into 50 Bitcoins and then 50 more were mined 10 minutes later, they would have gotten diluted by 50%. All of their wealth would have been cut in half to the guy that mined that block. And so Bitcoin's journey to being able to accept that level of wealth, it's going to take a little bit of time. Gold is a well-established, massive market with distribution at the central banking level. So you're getting allocations from the biggest of the big, from those that are also now trying to hedge out of maybe like the US Treasury market and the global bond market and all of that. I mean, so yeah, all the way at the central banking level, they're buying gold. And so it has always been, as far as I'm concerned, in at least recent decades, a proxy to the confidence of the dollar, the Fed, monetary policy management. So yes, no, not your friends. I don't think your friends are buying gold. Well, also the other thing too is there's an arbitrage trade here. I think I remember I told this story on the podcast, but I remember it was Citadel maybe I was talking to. It was some like big firm, and I had made a very like casual recommendation. I was like, if I were you guys, I would short gold, long Bitcoin over the next 50 years. And that's the trade. It's just an arbitrage trade. It's just netting the wealth transfer. And so not to say that I would recommend buying gold. I think those that aren't allocating to Bitcoin have not assessed the risk properly. So there's risk reward correlation. Bitcoin outperforms gold by a mile, but you can argue that there's more risk involved in the trade. That's what someone who is actively managing these big portfolios would tell you. So I would never advocate for buying gold. I don't think the average retailer should buy gold. I think the average retailer should buy Bitcoin, but it still is an accurate proxy, I think, for market sentiment.
Yeah, I know you said not to focus on this, but it does seem like it's a leading indicator, and it does seem like Bitcoin's the faster horse once that indicator kind of receives some sense of confirmation or consensus. Do you think with the Bitcoin ETF or developments in Bitcoin, do you think that at any point Bitcoin flips gold as a leading indicator in terms of how people are viewing the strength of the dollar?
Yeah, I just don't buy into all that non-leading indicator bullshit. I like Bitcoin's gonna do well because it's the hardest money, and so it just doesn't mean anything to me. I I do think it's interesting to see. I think that the world is losing confidence in leadership, in government, in currency. It's the first time I've ever seen any of our friends be fluent in the term inflation, understand what it means, and not trust the fact that their government is, whether it's local or national government, is going to bring it down. So I like the proxy of gold being like at what, like just trying to get market sentiment of like people are saying everyone's full of shit. That's fascinating to me. But leading, lagging, this and that. I mean, Bitcoin goes up against everything. Bitcoin's gonna go up forever against real estate, against gold, against dollars. So I don't know. I don't know. I've always also thought Bitcoin is a leading indicator for all financial markets because it's the only free one left. Bitcoin's the only market that has no central planning. And it's the reason that it's so painful for people to be a part of. Like when you get into Bitcoin, the bull markets are always shocking to the upside. you feel so euphoric. It's like taking a drug. You're like, holy shit. And you feel like a genius and you find the love of your life and you find your dream job. Bull markets are always like, pinch me, I must be dreaming. And bear markets are always more painful than you ever have budgeted for. You never thought that institution you had your deposits in are going under. You never thought the love of your life was cheating on you. You never thought your parents were going to get divorced. And it just takes the fucking life out of you. And I think that's because all of us have been living a life through a centrally planned world, where as the Fed has gone on off the gold standard and continually to fix everything in the economy, risk is fully institutionalized. So if anything ever goes wrong in this world, you're never actually subjected to the downside. If anything actually goes right in this world, you never actually get to experience the upside. You're kind of a cog in the system. And so I also think Bitcoin's the only free market. So what market led the SVB collapse? Bitcoin. FTX fell apart first. So if you're going to raise rates that fast and suck the life out of something, the centrally planned market is going to, it doesn't react to the universe. So the Bitcoin market reacted immediately, and everyone in Bitcoin got popped in the mouth harder than they ever thought they could ever stomach. Everyone in this industry got utterly and completely destroyed, and it was so painful. But that's because you get to actually experience real life pain and the realities of the universe in a free open market, which is what we need as society. You shouldn't protect people from that. And then Bitcoin led that. And Bitcoin also is going to lead to the upside, and you're going to be able to experience what it feels like to be successful and be right and build wealth and find love. So I don't know. I think Bitcoin's a leading indicator for all things, and everything else is centrally planned. But Bitcoin's not big enough yet to collect consensus from 8 billion people. Gold arguably isn't either, by the way, but it is interesting. It is. I mean, it's interesting that the biggest, most powerful country in the world is saying, we're crushing it. Lend us money and we'll give you 5.5% back risk-free because we're kicking ass so much. We're the best. And the whole world is like, you're a liar. Fuck you. Now that's fascinating, right? Because that never happens. And so if they go up and flip another middle finger and say, fuck you guys, I'm not buying these fucking bonds. I don't want the future of the United States of America. I'm sick of you guys. Your president can't ride a fucking bike. Like, you're a mess. Their civil unrest in that country is on its way to Argentina. People can't afford their groceries. People don't want to elect anyone that's running for president anymore. I don't want to own your debt. I don't want to lend you money. Fuck you. Yeah, that probably means Bitcoin's can go up a lot.
Yeah, it seems like bull markets. I like the pinch me, I must be dreaming. But bear markets seem to have the effect of wake me up. This is this is a nightmare.
Yeah, but I don't think people appreciate how centrally planned, and this is my opinion, how centrally planned the world is. So risk is fully institutionalized. If someone fucks up, like a bank, we all burden the cost of that. The cost of a mistake is split up individually between everyone, even if you weren't a part of the mistake. And if someone experiences, and success works oppositely, where if we experience a ton of success, it is only experienced in a very select few. So the upside is very hard to come by. It's very hard to feel euphoric and like you're impacting the world and making a significant change. The wealthy, the elites, those that own the financial assets in this country or in the world. So the upside is very hard to come by, and the downside is split evenly amongst everyone. So you kind of live in this robotic, centrally planned world, which then if you come across a free market, it fucks you up, because you're like, oh, if I deposit to an institution and that institution's irresponsible and fucks up, not everyone burdens the cost with me. Only I get fucked because I was irresponsible enough to leave my shit on FTX. Ouch. This is painful. I mean, people were like, oh man, are they going to bail out Sam? Fuck, I lost my life savings. Like, I'm sorry, man. You grew up in a centrally planned world. There are no bailouts. They can't print any more Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin's gone, buddy. And that's painful, right? And then to experience the upside where it's like, wait a second, I bought a hard money and held my convictions and didn't back down, and I'm up 800%. I actually can own my home full out without a mortgage? Like, no, yeah, that's right. They're like, get the fuck out of here. Wait, the world just got bigger. I can actually invest now in my small business. I can actually send my kid to a better university. No way. And it's like living in an alternative universe. It's like, yes, you get to be a part. It's everyone has access to unparalleled upside, and downside is owned by those that took on the risk themselves. So I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but it does. That's why it's so hard, I think, to get into Bitcoin, is it's like a alternative universe. Everyone else's lives are centrally planned, risk institutionalized. There's someone out there that's effectively controlling how much your groceries are going to cost you. And if you actually take it as opposed to dollar denominated and you take it a percent of your paycheck, like there's some guy that popped out of a vagina just like you, and he is controlling how much your currency is worth, which you get in exchange for what you do with your life. Fuck out of here. But it's just, I don't know. It's jarring. It's really jarring to get into Bitcoin and experience what a free market actually is, which is beautiful in the way the world should be. But Bitcoin is always leading in that aspect. I don't think anyone leads, I don't think gold is more free of a market than Bitcoin. But it is bigger and it has been around longer. So it is a better indicator of what people like Stanley Druckenmiller are thinking.
Yeah. Bitcoin's been described as the biggest wealth transfer vehicle in recent memory. In order for wealth to transfer, though, that does imply that there is a set of winners, people who are participating in the upside of the transfer, and then losers, people who are participating in the downside of a transfer. In theory, for something to transfer, if I transfer $1 to you, I'm net down $1, you're net up $1. How do you think that wealth transfer plays? Like, what does that wealth transfer look like? Where is the wealth transferring from, and who's it going to?
Let me actually pause you on that one, because I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Markets are binary. Here's the other thing about this centrally planned life, where there's some, whether unelected or elected elites, that centrally plan all of our lives and decide what tolerance of emotions we should be exposed to. All a bunch of bullshit. There are no ties in markets. There's no tie game. There's no everyone gets a trophy. There's no participation medals. It's binary. You either were the winner or the loser, straight up, right? Like when I bought Bitcoin from someone sold that Bitcoin to me. And so someone lost the upside on the Bitcoin I bought, and someone gained the upside on the Bitcoin, right? There's a winner and a loser. That's what people need to understand. So that's the other thing about when I say I'm getting on zero, or I don't want any of those pieces of paper, is because think of it that way. There's a winner and a loser. What team are you on? Straight up. There is no, yeah, I get it, but like, I really have been thinking about getting a home. No. That's centrally planned, soft pussy shit. Everyone gets a participation trophy. It is. It's like, yeah, no, I understand. I understand why you would aggressively ape into Bitcoin, but I've been talking to my girl, and we've been thinking about taking the next step. It's like, no, yeah, you're not. I'm sorry, man. You just grew up in a centrally planned world. You're not understanding. You're either a winner or a loser. Which team are you on? You think dollars are going to win? If not, you're a loser. Do you understand that? So as we're going through a wealth transfer, yes, there is wealth that is existing in existing assets. dollars, real estate, gold, the equities market. Okay. And it is transferring into Bitcoin. If you don't ape into Bitcoin, you are saying, I don't believe that's the winner. I'm a real estate bull over Bitcoin. I'm a dollar bull, but it's very binary. There is no like, no, yeah, I just, I'm on both teams. No. Super binary. And that's when, if you ask any successful trader, that's what everyone says. My dad, unfortunately not on this episode, always said the thing about markets is to make the Hall of Fame, you don't have to hit 300. So he's talking about baseball, or you don't have to shoot 50% from three. You have to find one winner and make sure you win. That's it. If you want to make the Hall of Fame, if you want to tell your kid or your grandkids or pass down generational wealth, you don't have to get 100 trades right. You got to get one. You just got to make sure you're on the winning side. So I don't know. I hope people get that and they can tell that to their friends too. Thing about Bitcoin is it's a winner. So if you're not owning it, you're a loser. That's a fact. There are no other options. If you're not winning, you're losing. And if you want to make the Hall of Fame and be a legend, all you have to do is find one winner and just make sure you win. And you win at it over and over and over and over again. Anyway, I just don't think people get that because we're in a wealth transfer. And how many times I'm sitting here with people, so we're celebrating your birthday. I'm sitting here with not drinking alcohol, which was a weird experience, but we're surrounded by kids that are drinking alcohol. And I'm sitting here and they're like, yeah, no, I totally get Bitcoin. I just don't own any. It's like, okay, well, you're a loser. You're on the losing team. And I just don't, and obviously these kids just don't get it. Just don't get it. But markets are not, there is no bailout. There is no participation trophy. There is no thanks for showing up. We really value your contribution. No, you're either a winner or a loser. And I don't know. And if you don't know which one you are, you're definitely a loser.
Yeah, I think but I think it's super interesting, right? The notion that holding dollars makes you a loser, especially for a United States born and raised individual. I mean, even for me getting into Bitcoin, I previously had never once considered whether or not the dollar was good. I had always just believed that it was the best. And so for me, it was like, was there a second best or was there a third best? That was the potential, I don't know, call it like threat to the dollar for me. And then Bitcoin forced me to consider the question, is the dollar even good at what it purports to be good at? And it seems like the overwhelming response is no.
But the problem,
the more you dig into it.
But the problem is none of this shit is. The problem is this centrally planned garbage where people put their money in a 401k and they think real estate is a good investment. Real estate is for you to live in. It's not money. Right? So you're okay. You're saying there are people out there that say their 401k and housing is better than digital fixed scarce money, global money. Okay, you're a loser. Straight up. Well, or you're a winner and I'm a loser. But the point is, we're not on the same team. Like all the people are like, no, man, I actually really love what you do. I love when you go on CNBC and say it how it is. But yeah, my money's on a 401k. And it's like, okay, we're not on the same team. One of us is going to be a winner and one of us is going to be a loser. But people don't appreciate that. It's like, yeah, no, I didn't buy Bitcoin. I invested in this real estate Airbnb. I'm gonna generate cash flow. Okay. Well, one of us is going to be a winner. One of us is going to be a loser. And at this point, it's hard to argue. I mean, Bitcoin's the best performing asset like in the history of humanity. Ever since it's existed, it's outperformed everything. But that's what people. So it's not just the dollar. That's the thing. It's like, okay, Dylan, let's play this game. There's only winners and losers. That's it. So you're one of those two things. Okay. Out of all of your options, there's only one thing in the marketplace that you can't make any more of that you can physically store in your brain and that's globally accessible to everyone and divisible into 100 million pieces. Okay, which one do you think is going to be the winner? It's exhausting to talk about and frustrating.
But I think it's an interesting notion too, like carrying it forward. If you are the notion that if you're holding dollars, you're short Bitcoin was not like, I know it's obvious now, but in hindsight, it never was to me. And to your point, you can extrapolate that out to anything, right? Like in theory, I have this MacBook sitting right here. In theory, I could have bought $100 like I'm short Bitcoin spending the money on this Mac. I'm short, I could have bought a flip phone. I have an iPhone. That's a short position against Bitcoin.
Yes, I don't own anything outside of Bitcoin, my house, and my company. Period. And we have internally at Strike, we actually have this culture where the cost of capital is Bitcoin. So it's like we don't have a culture where people are like, oh man, we're doing so well. We really want to hire all these people, or we really want to get nicer desks. We don't have that. We as a business, we just stack sats. That's it. That's it. It's like everything that you spend capital on that isn't Bitcoin is your short Bitcoin. So for me personally, this is how I live my life. It's either an experience I value with people I love, or it's a home, a place where I can build experiences and take care of people that I love. That's it. That's it. I eat ground beef. It's crazy. But like, my girl who's, wasn't initially a Bitcoiner when I met her. And initially you're like, oh man, do you want to get a place in my, no. I get homes if I live in them. I don't get real estate. I don't get fancy clothes. I don't get anything outside of sats. That's it. I'm not buying fucking Balenciaga no. Shorting Bitcoin for pants. Mm-mm.
So utilities, experiences, Bitcoin. But
that's the way it should be, by the way. Look, wealth should be concentrated in money. Money is a technology that we built for a very specific use case, is to scale society away from barter so that we can hyperfixate and focus our energy and our time. I actually think as we bleed into hyper Bitcoinization and things like AI, actually, I think hopefully AI helps us all not be like lawyers, for example. Right. And I'm hopeful that we'll see, no, seriously, because it's like, we need a terms of service. I'd rather ask OpenAI, right? Instead of having a beautiful human being go through 25 years of school to get to draft me terms of service. It's like, if a computer, and my point is, I hope that we see a renaissance on the back half of Bitcoin and AI into more art and culture, because as humans, we should not be chasing our own tail, running around, trying to figure out how to save and store wealth, how to accurately price things globally, how to interface with the global economy. And we shouldn't have our smartest, most capable species spending 15 years in school to draft terms of service against each other. The fuck? Like, there's way better ways to express ourselves and our being. And so I'm hopeful that, get all of the wealth that's not in money and get it into money, which is Bitcoin. So there should be no market for having 10 homes if you don't live in them, in my opinion. Your money's better off in a scarce fixed asset. And then I don't think there should be a life spent, I don't know, legal's maybe a bad example. What's another a job that could be disintermediated by AI?
Every single one of them.
Yeah, and I actually think we'll probably see like a renaissance potentially. I don't know when this would happen, of like humans that don't have to focus on persisting and storing wealth are getting debased all the time, getting stolen from by their government, and not needing to do a lot of what I consider to be like pretty like manual labor like that. And we can get back to artistry.
Mm.
It's
Do you
my
think that with, okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to frame this question, and it's inspired immensely by a tweet from this person named Hunter Horsley. I'll just read the prompt. He said, let's say Bitcoin does go to $1 million plus, and that there are suddenly Bitcoin owners with incredible resources. What happens next? What do they do with those resources? How does the world change? Do you think that you'll see a bunch of Bitcoiners draped out in Balenciaga, driving around Lamborghini Uruses or Bentley Phantoms? Or do you think that there's a bit of like a social / cultural shift in terms of what we view as important or valuable?
Yeah, I think it was a conversation I was having, or I was posting back and forth with American Hodl on No Sir, I think it was recently, where I said I don't think we're that far off from, instead of the Trump building, it's the Satoshi building. Instead of the front of the floor seats at the New York Knicks game being a bunch of Hollywood actors that get accused of trafficking children and shit, it's a bunch of Bitcoiners. I don't think we're that far off from a lot of these, generational wealth passing down sports franchises, and supposedly they're all racist or whatever. I don't think you're that far off from Bitcoiners owning sports franchises. I do. And that would be it would be a way to experience the wealth transfer. And I think the world's going to be a tremendously better place because those that have accumulated wealth and are in a position to distribute it have a significantly lower time preference. That's it. Like it's really like the idea of sacrifice and commitment is about promising your future self that you'll do the hard stuff now. And I think lowering your time preference through money and that wealth transfer will do outstanding things for the world. Like, I'll tell you guys this, if I own the Chicago Bulls, I would never sell any one of my customers or my fans a seed oil ever. Just like out of principle. And just right. And that's like a very like layman's example that isn't super impactful on its own. But that's an example. Like put yourself through that exercise. If a Bitcoiner owned the Bulls, you think that I'd be selling powdered churros? I wouldn't. Right? I think wealth class with lower time preference changes the world materially.
How do you think a lower time preference? How do you think humanity adopting a lower time preference improves humanity? I have like a tangible example that I can think of, but I'm curious your thoughts.
I think that is what being human is our ability to collaborate and value the future more than we value today. I mean, we have a culture over like making sure that you reproduce at a certain age and like get married just so that you can raise and foster the next generation before you die. I mean, we place an immense value on the future. And that's what being human is all about, is saying, I'm not going to go to the beach today and just fuck off and drink beer. I'm going to go to work. Why would you do that? Why would you not just go to the beach? It's because you're valuing your future. You're doing hard stuff now to make the future of your life worth more and more valuable. And so lowering your time preference is effectively allowing you to value the future more. And so then think about it in reverse. If society is built to have a high time preference, we're not valuing the future. That's where you get a lot of these kids that are spending their bonuses on clothes and on bottle service and on vacations for their Instagrams, right? So lowering your time preference allows you to say, I'm not going to value today more than tomorrow. So I'm going to go to the gym. Why would you go to the gym? That's such hard shit for today. But you're not going to the gym for today. You're going to the gym for tomorrow, for next month, for next year, for 20, 40, 50 years from now. You're not going to be worried and have health concerns when you're 55, 60 years old, right? So lower time preference is everything. And it's the same like for like when we like the spear. I think of the spear as like one of the most seminal inventions in human history. If you actually look, this is super fascinating. If you're interested, you should look up the evolution of the human brain. Our brain really took off, if I were to use millennial speak, really hit its stride and saw a lot of growth when we started consuming other animal organs. Really, the point is when we started being able to confidently kill other animals in our primal days with the spear, we started to see a lot of evolutionary growth in our muscular, in our brains, in our cognitive abilities. So our ability to eat like liver and cow and baboons and stuff. And so the point is like, can you imagine if those humans are like, I'm not going to sit all day and carve up spears and communicate with each other and plan an economy around, all right, you build the homes, you sharpen the spears, you guys go hunt, and we're going to put in all this work because we know a year from now, we're going to be fucking eating awesome organs and growing and reproducing, right? That's what like being human is all about right there. Like if everyone in Chicago went to the beach tomorrow instead of went to work, the city wouldn't work, right? The city would shut down. Anyway, it's my take.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think high time preference, or phrased a different way, I think the fact that society has been robbed of its ability to think from a low time preference, to operate within a low time preference, is one of the single most damaging things to ever happen to society. It manifests itself in all sorts of things like obesity rates, divorce rates. You know, I was having a conversation yesterday, and a friend of mine was telling me, I'm not ready to get married yet, and society is pressuring me so much to get married. And I hold a very contrarian opinion. I don't think society pressures you to get married at all. I think society pressures you not to because, there's always this notion of the shiny new next thing. And if you are robbed of your ability to sit within your own means, sit within your own sort of ideas, right? And society's constantly, here's that hoodie's great, but here's a better one. That car's great, but here's a better one. That girl's great, or that guy's great, but here's have you seen what this guy's doing on TikTok? Have you seen what kind of car this person's driving, right? I think that society does not pressure you to get married. I think it does the exact opposite.
Well, it's true, but the takeaway is a bad money pressures you to think in a high time preference, is to value now more than the future. And that's the point that I really think the listener should take home, is that if your dollars are going to be worth less tomorrow than they are today, then you should spend them now. And that makes the present worth more than tomorrow, which is destructive to society, which does lead to things like there's no coincidence that obesity rates, divorce rates, pretty much every single bad KPI of humanity and society is trending down since we got off the gold standard, since we effectively said that the best time to spend money and express yourself is now. And it constructs society in a really dangerous way. And so if we're building a new wealth class that's extracting wealth out of legacy real estate, out of the 401k indexes, out of bonds, and into Bitcoin, which is inherently, first of all, was distributed fairly. So this thing wasn't initially distributed and brought to the public markets through Goldman Sachs IPO. Distributed fairly. So everyone, you're going to see a lot of wealth with all sorts of different opinions, which is great. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that are very far right. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that are very far left. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that are in Africa. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that are in Southeast Asia, whatever. And that it teaches you low time preference. And I can speak for myself. Like, I mean, like I said, I don't spend money on anything really that I don't absolutely need. I value my tomorrow. There's a meme that I love. Maybe we can show it, Scooty. I know that our listeners are actually more on podcasting apps than they are on YouTube. But there's a meme I love. It's so funny and actually explains this perfectly. It's the girl screaming, "Babe, please, you have to spend some money at this point." And it's the Chad that's like, "No, maybe next cycle." And that's how it feels. It's like, so yeah, with a new wealth class that is inherently values the future more than the now. You're where they invest that capital, how they're going to treat their customers, how they're going to allocate to the future. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Last question, I guess. More specific to you, if you wake up tomorrow, Bitcoin's $1 million, what would you do? Anything different?
Can't tell if you're trying to dox. Like, what would I buy? I don't want to talk about that. Just like, what do you mean?
What would you do? Invest in an AI company, buy a ticket to space?
No,
what would you do?
No, nothing different. Nothing different. I already live. I live the way. The Bitcoin price won't change my living habits. I eat. I source my food and my dairy from local farms. I like raw dairy. I like fresh grass-fed beef. That wouldn't change. I wouldn't buy more homes. Like I said, I'm a big believer in real estate is for you to consume it. It's a market good for consumption. It's not a market good to then exchange later for other market goods like a money. So I can't consume 2 homes at once. So if I travel, I'm happy to rent. But I wouldn't buy any more homes. I wouldn't start any more companies. I believe in singular focus, singular conviction, leaning into one winner and changing the world with it. I think diversity is a scam. So I wouldn't start any new companies. So I don't think anything about my life would materially change. I just do think that as the wealth class of Bitcoin grows, it will start making significant impacts on society. That's what I believe. I mean, like, I don't know, Jack, like I bring up Jack a lot. The other Jack, obviously, like I think very highly of him, but think about that guy, man. Like he's able to cut big checks to fund like open source development and stuff. Like that's, I think, an early glimpse into what you'll see. But yeah, I think as Bitcoin hits 1 million and people like Saylor or people like Dorsey, and the general wealth class of Bitcoiners has more influence and more access to the world, I think it'll be interesting. Like if you walked into the United Center to watch a Bulls game, and there wasn't a seed oil in sight, I think that's a fascinating concept. That's a really crazy idea. Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about, getting opening up some of our own like steakhouses here in Chicago or something someday. Like I wouldn't sell a seed oil. Everything would be grass fed. The dairy would be raw. Like it's just interesting. So we'll see what happens.
I think gut reaction, I would try to buy as much farmland as I could from Bill Gates. I went down this weird rabbit hole that apparently that guy owns more farmland in America than I think any other institution or single individual combined. He owns the most farmland in the United States. I view that as odd, very weird. I would buy as much farmland as I can, and I'd like donate it back out, or I don't know. I wouldn't want to control it either, but I would want to buy as much as I can, and I'd be a high school teacher. I would teach high school. That's
Interesting.
what I
Why
would
would
do.
you do that?
I think that I would be able to make an impact on young kids, who I think are unfortunately conditioned to be set up for failure, whether that's ideologically or from a pure skill perspective. The shit that I learned in high school, I don't use fucking any of it. It was probably the most useless educational experience I could ever ask for. Social experience, great. You learn how to deal with a lot of people, but I didn't think I learned anything particularly useful. I think it was like actually like a hilariously awful way to prepare someone for quote unquote life. And for a lot of people,
Yeah.
they don't go on to graduate and go to college, or that's the end of their sort of formal education cycle, if they even get to that. And I think that that's just like an embarrassing status quo to set.
I agree with that. I just think that's personally, I just don't believe that that's a good way to fix it. It's kind of like, I think the Fed sucks, so I'm going to be a better Fed chairman. It's like, I just don't think there should be a Fed chairman at all. I don't know. I think education's kind of borked. You
Yeah,
probably
maybe
change,
like start a school then or something. Yeah, I don't know. To your point, I don't know.
yeah, like I like what Sailor's doing. He's got the Sailor Academy where it's like free education. He puts it online. Yeah, I mean, I think sorry, not to, I think you'd change kids' lives, but I don't know, what, like a dozen of them?
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
true.
I'm
Scalability issue for sure.
interesting. Yeah, I don't know. My life wouldn't change. I I think I'm pretty happy with my life. I'm just excited to see, yeah, like I said, if it wasn't a bunch of inherited sports franchises and Manhattan real estate and stuff, and some Bitcoiners had capital. And also of those people that will convert to Bitcoiners, by the way. Think of it that way too, where Bitcoin kind of like it is like acid. It just seeps into everything and destroys what it touches. And so of the folks that are, I mean, this is the first election. We've talked about this where Bitcoin is a topic. And I think over the years, people in significant power positions and running companies, like what happens if Zuckerberg and Bezos and Elon and all these guys are Bitcoiners? How's that going to change the world? I don't know. We'll see. I do think it is the most significant wealth transfer, though, and at least since I've been alive, recent memory.
Absolutely. I hope I'm alive to see this play out in real time. I'd be very curious to see how the world changes. But I have no doubt that it's an inevitability. It's a win, not an if. But
I,
I don't unclear if I'm around for that win.
well, I think you will be, unless something really terrible happens. I, um, markets aren't slow. Markets aren't forgiving. Markets don't accommodate for other people's time, and people aren't stupid. That's the thing too. Is like nobody's gonna sit and just watch this happen slowly. So I don't know. I've said it many times. I wouldn't be surprised if we touched $1 million this cycle, even if it's briefly. I think people aren't stupid. Markets are very violent. They don't wait, and that's how you go from wait, what's going on to knowing you're a loser. I think this stuff plays out a lot quicker than people budget for. I don't think for Bitcoiners to achieve a wealth, those that have a monopoly on Manhattan real estate. I think your art goes bull over the next 18 months. Sailors, one of the richest people on the planet. I think it'll happen pretty fast.
Well, net takeaway: don't be a loser. Buy some Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't have to tout around with a big UFC belt as if you're a winner. But think of it that way: is not violent. But if you're, I'm going to stick to my 401k. Okay. Well, that you're saying that that's going to make you a winner. The thing that every single other person is doing, the thing that constantly goes, the thing that Bitcoin's outperformed every single year. Okay. Well, good luck.
We'll see. All right. Should we switch to some Q&A, wrap this episode up?
Yeah, you tell me. I know we got to, now I'm starting to not feel very good. So maybe you got me sick. Yeah, let's answer some questions and get some rest.
All right, sounds good. First question from Bitcoin Ali. I do wish Bill was here for this one, but I'm curious your opinion as well. Is there a risk of paper Bitcoin once BTC derivatives enter the market atop of ETFs?
No, I don't know. How many episodes are we gonna get asked this one? No, I don't believe the whole thesis and theory about gold being manipulated by derivative instruments. I think I can summarize it. If you haven't listened to our last episode, I think you should. But if I were to summarize it, it's in twofold. One, gold, physical gold was very concentrated in custody. And so Bitcoin, I think it's far too gone for Bitcoin to be a victim of the same fate because of how it was distributed in the early days. So someone like Saylor, who's been so aggressive, has only achieved 1% of custody. I don't think there's anyone that will ever get 50% of the Bitcoins. And my dad's math on that is because a third of them are gone already. A third of them are already held by such long-term holders. They haven't moved in a decade. And then there's the final third that is defining its price, that's actively being traded and redistributed. And so I think it's mathematically impossible for a single custodian to achieve anything that could be used to manipulate and suppress it. I mean, maybe someone gets like BlackRock on Coinbase gets 10, 15%, but I mean, that's not near the size to manipulate a market. So that's for one. And the other is because Bitcoin is the first digital bearer physical instrument. The reason that's important is because if I wanted to buy gold and then stash it under my mattress or stash it in my brain, it'd be tremendously difficult to do that. The fact that I could go on Strike or go on whatever, Coinbase, Robinhood, and buy Bitcoin and physically get it into my house, into my brain, under my mattress makes it incredibly difficult to manipulate. It's the idea that gold, access to gold, is almost only through a derivative instrument or a financial instrument. It's very rarely through the physical. And the physical is so difficult where the spot market of Bitcoin, the physical market of Bitcoin is so honest and so efficient that it'd be so hard. Because if someone was suppressing the price of Bitcoin down to 3K, I know Strike for a fact would sell good God amount of Bitcoin that day that would be withdrawn immediately to cold storage. And so with gold, that's not true. You suppress the gold price, it's still very difficult to go get physical and take it out of the market and make. So I think the answer is no. That's how I would summarize how we've been talking about it on the podcast, those two reasons.
A question from Carmelo the Don, and I'm going to caveat this question. I believe we might have answered this before, but in the context of the conversation today, I think it's a helpful opinion to talk about. But how much Bitcoin is enough Bitcoin for an individual?
That question can be answered by anyone but yourself. I don't fucking know. Yeah, like you got to answer that for yourself. I get, for me personally, it's I don't want to live with any regrets. I personally understand Bitcoin and have this conviction in Bitcoin where I don't want to look back in regret. Like the thing I'm okay now. I'm seasoned enough where dips I've learned to appreciate, respect, understand, and almost have like an interesting relationship with bear markets. The thing that I will not tolerate is if Bitcoin rips to the upside and I go, fuck, why didn't I don't do that anymore. Like that is a part of my, what I would consider to be my childhood, my growing up. So for me, I have no regrets. And for me, that means I have no cash. So I literally don't own any dollars. But for you, I have no idea what that means. But the right allocation to Bitcoin, in my opinion, is living with no regrets.
I like that answer. I think enough is an incredibly subjective term. What might be enough for me might not be enough for you in terms of what you want or what you need in order to live. But I like answering this question with just more than zero. More than zero. Just own more than zero Bitcoin and participate, to your point, participate in the upside. It's coming. It's happening in real time.
Yeah,
just participate.
That's a very cute answer. But I kind of want to encourage people to walk down this like, okay, so I own more than zero. Do I have enough now? Well, if Bitcoin were to double tomorrow, is there anything you'd regret? That's what I want people to ask themselves, because guess what? That's all it does. And if you believe in it, now just be very careful. If Bitcoin, that's the thing to think about. If Bitcoin is going to double tomorrow, if Bitcoin's going to go on a 500% bull run over the next year, is there anything you'd regret? Putting in all this time and energy to understand it, build conviction, be early to a movement, to a revolution, to a wealth transfer. You'd regret anything? Would you stop buying fancy pants and make sure that you own more sats? Would you take your 401k and convert it? Would anything you'd regret? Because if the answer is yes, I'm just not a live with regrets kind of guy. I'm a, like live with my heart on my sleeve kind of guy. So that's I just be careful because we're approaching a halving, bull run around the corner. And maybe there are people that are like, no regrets. I'm cool. Like Bitcoin could 10x and I'm happy keeping my, savings account in cash. Okay, well, that's what I call a loser, but that's fine. that's your life. But if you would live with some regrets, I would reassess your position.
Last question we got, Mr. Longfellow. Is there or would Strike ever have limit orders?
Yeah, they're coming, of course. I don't know, maybe we should be more transparent about like our roadmap. But yeah, I mean, we got Europe right around the corner at this point. Our new limit system, limit orders is on there for sure. If I had to guess, I would say probably Q2, which is in the coming months, but we'll see. But yes, absolutely.
Awesome. I think that wraps up Q&A and wraps up the episode. If you want to sign us out.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, that we're under the weather. But we do these every single week, so we'll be back in 7 days anyway. But I enjoyed this. Just as a reminder, we don't have any sponsors. We do this just truly because we believe in authentic conversation about Bitcoin and because we enjoy it, to be honest. So if you do want to support us, as a reminder, I guess I didn't bring it up, I founded Strike. Dylan's the chief of staff of Strike. If you want to support us, you can use Strike. I think we're one of the best in the world at Bitcoin, period. That's all we focus on. So you'll find more Bitcoin native features, whether full Lightning support, whether it's free on-chain withdrawals, whether it's significantly cheaper pricing. If you care about Bitcoin and you want the best Bitcoin experience, I think Strike is the best company in the world at that. If you want Dogecoin and Solana experience, you're never going to be my customer. So if you want to support us, definitely download Strike, give it a try. Let us know what you think. We're launching all over the world. Europe is next. We're really excited about it. And with that, I promise to be a bit healthier next week. I'm going to go drink some bone broth. So any comments, questions, feedback you have for us, leave it in the comments. My dad will be back next week too. And we'll talk to you then. Peace.
See you next week.